Hi everyone, this is your favorite friend Jay or Jaylan Salah as you formerly know her, film critic at Geek Vibes Nation and In Session Film. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing the cast of The Secret Art of Human Flight. I'm interviewing actor and lead producer Grant Rosenmeyer, veteran actor whom I personally love, Paul Raci, and the director H.P. Mendoza about it. This film actually took me to places I never thought I would be. It's a great, quirky film about grief, about connection, about finding yourself after a long time. So, first of all, I would like to thank you all for talking to me.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Okay, and I want to ask Mendoza, I want to ask you, like, when you have a project like that on your hands, what drew you to it? Did you seek it? Did it seek you? How did it reach you?
Um, yeah, it was such an amorphous process. Like I don't think there was like any one journey that I could have pinpointed at the time. I think that what made it special was I just kind of gave myself to it freely because it was existing as a thing that was going to get made with or without me. You know how you once in a while you got an opportunity and you think to yourself, well, I let that pass me by. Um, this was going to happen with or without me, and I'd never directed someone else's script before. So when Grant Rosenmeyer came to me with this script, and he really believed in me, like, and you have a lot of people who say they believe in you, but that's what they're supposed to say. But he actually knew my work, and we follow each other on Instagram too, so that helped. I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to give myself freely and see what this does to me.
Okay. So Grant, why did you reach out to, Mendoza to just ask him for the project? Like, why did you seek him specifically for this project?
Um, that's a, you know, so HP and I know each other through Richard Wong, who directed my last film, Come As You Are. And they had made Coma the Musical together, which if you haven't seen it, fix that tonight because it's so fun. It's so
Okay.
funny. And the DNA of that movie is similar to this movie in that it's so human. It's not afraid to go for the laugh and go for the tears, go for the real feeling. And when I set out to make a movie, I want to really make people feel something. Like if we're going to put stuff out, there's just so much stuff now. Can we just like actually try and make stuff that means something to us and will hopefully be helpful? I wanted this movie to be helpful to people if they're going through something. And so in this instance, yeah, HP. I just watched his work and I knew of his work through Rich, and then watch. I went back and after our initial conversation, which went for like an hour and a half, where we're citing getting high on crazy drugs and Rick and Morty, but also like old French films, and then you sort of and I remember the night that we talked, I watched I Am a Ghost, and when that movie started, it was I think he made it for like $7,000 on a handy cam or something. And this thing starts, and I just go, "Oh boy, I am really in for it." And I was watching it alone in an apartment over COVID, and with my cat, and my cat's over there. And 7 minutes into this movie, I had to turn the lights back on. I'm holding my cat like this, and I was like, "What has he done to me?" And like, how did he do this for no money, with no resources, no crew? And then I watched his triptych Attack, Decay, Release, and it was just so easy. It was so obvious as soon between the conversations and then going and really doing a deep dive on all of his work. I'm like, of course he can also edit and he can compose. And I just really wanted to make an HP Mendoza movie. And how lucky that this happened to be the perfect thing that sort of spoke to both of us. It really spoke to all of us. It found us at the height of the pandemic. We had all lost. Loss is not just death. It is destabilization. It is a bunch of people. We were all grieving, and the opposite of grief is connection. We were all able to connect over this movie. And what a joy that was.
What a joy. Seriously, what a joy. This movie made me feel all sorts of feeling. And I'm asking, like HP Mendoza again, how do you take your own story, your own experience, and then put it into, like a project that is not yours, but sometimes it talks to you in certain ways. Like you take a feeling that you have and you turn it into a completely different story, a completely different narrative. How did you do that?
I think that even just the act of telling a story to someone else that someone else told you makes it your story. If you're authentic at all, you're going to tell it in your own way. And I think by me giving myself freely to everybody, just like being as open as possible, I'm gonna quote Paul in this case here on day one when Paul showed up. I was so shocked that he was like ready to go. He got the costume on and we did the monologue. And later on, Paul admitted to he said to everybody, he goes, "Yeah, I really wanted to do that. I also really wanted to impress the shit out of all of you." And I thought to myself, that's all I want to do on any given day. So all of these directorial choices are about me trying to impress. But again, even though this is my first time directing a movie that I didn't write, by me trying to impress, just trying to do it right, by just not trying to mess up. The only way I could not mess up is by doing it impressively in a way that I can impress myself. And in the end, it becomes my story, even if I didn't write the story myself.
Perfectly said, exactly.
Can I
Paul,
interject one thing? So sorry, I just want to interject
definitely,
one
please, yes.
on that note is, sometimes you show up to work on something and you just know everybody's there to punch a clock and collect a paycheck. And even if it's it can be a very pleasant experience. But you feel the difference when people show up to impress. And it was from department heads on down. Every member of the cast and crew just showed up to really impress and was just so the fear of failure was high on this one. And so what I think you see is the end result is just everybody putting their best foot forward.
Hey, so I couldn't wait to talk to Paul, but I'm just fangirling here a little bit because it's Paul Raci. I'm sorry. But how do you bring the energy, this fresh energy, every single time to a new character? Because you're Paul Raci. I mean, Mealworm is such a character that I want to consume. I just want every single detail about this person. I want to know the backstory. I want to know the history. So how do you bring this vibrant energy in the industry, like being a character after character after character, but then you still retain this childlike wonder?
Oh, I love you. You're the best. Thank you. No, I'm just enjoying my life. I love being an actor. I love the place I'm in right now in my journey. So I can't help it. I auditioned for a role about a month ago for the older guy in the mafia. It was the older guy, the old man. Okay. And the casting director was like, she said, you're too vibrant. Well, you can't be an old man. So it's kind of working against me a little bit. But and this mealworm character is an amalgamation of people that I have met here in LA, life coaches, spiritual teachers. My spiritual teacher, his name was Nirvana. And so mealworm is perfect. So this guy is somebody that I know, that I've personally experienced, and it was a joy for me to be doing this role.
Okay, Grant, I want to ask you, this role took from you very vulnerable moments in front of the camera. Like you let your heart out. There were so many vulnerable moments. And I want to ask you, as an actor, how do you go to that place without, like safely? Of course, I know it's like the director also has to provide this space for you. But how do you, as an actor, go there and then come back without, like losing yourself in the process or something?
That's a great question. First of all, I took this role because it scared me. It scared the shit out of me. And then it is so much about the space it's created for you. And I want to give credit to these two guys right here, actually. It was the scene where I'm talking about my wife's eraser, the magic erase, the eraser. And it was maybe day 3, I want to say. I hadn't acted in like 2 years. And I was so scared. I was so scared. We had all talked so much about the scene, and there's a monologue, and I was just truly like, I froze. And the two of them, they took really good care of me throughout this whole process, and they both just sort of like looked at each other, and HP sort of sent everybody out of the room, and he sort of mealwormed me, and he was like, "You don't have to do anything. We are all here for you." And he just said, and he's like, "Just be here in this room, and just." And they just sort of left me for about 5 minutes. I think it was about 5 minutes you gave me. And I just stood in that room and I looked out that window, and there was this tree with these black leaves. And I just looking at this tree with these black leaves and was breathing. And then they sort of, when an HP was watching me on the monitor, and I could feel him feeling me from the other room. And when the time was right, he came back in and he gave me this look, and I just sort of like, and he was like, "You ready?" And I was like, "I don't know." And I went out of the room. And I remember being in that hallway, and they were about to call action, and the sun came through, and Paul's standing there, and he's about to say, this won't do. This all has to go. And I remember the sunlight streaming through the window, and it caught his golden hair. And I literally just like, like that, you know, and I was like, hold it, hold it, hold it, hold it. And if you watch me in that scene, my voice is shaking. Like I'm already there. I'm already I'm already in it. And these guys just, these beautiful men, they just sort of gave me the permission to go there, you know. And from that moment on, I would say from day 3 on, I was just such an open wound on this experience, and they emboldened me. You know, when you to be lucky enough to work with collaborators who can embolden you and give you the permission to go where you need to go and not feel judged. It was, oh man, it was, I carry it with me. I really do.
Carry Ben with you.
If I could, can I tag onto that?
Amazing.
I want to say that was actually day 2. That was day 2, man. That was crazy. And I remember the feeling was like, I was like, this guy's not happy. He's not comfortable. He's not happy. And when I cleared the set, I remember like holding you by the shoulders as I was like, I need you to be the most confident version of yourself, and that you're not that right now. And I remember, because it was a tense day, it's day 2, right? And I remember I was like, just sit and be silent. Just sit in this room, which is like echoing sound of metal. Like now it's occurring to me, right? And I left the room, Paul's outside, and as I turned around, because I remember thinking to myself, what am I saying to Grant? Is this gonna work? And I turned around, I was like, I'll be back in 5. And I turned around, I was like, I'm fired. And like I was like, he probably doesn't like me talking to him like this. And because after every take, I remember Grant would look at me, and Grant would have this look of like, what are we doing? Just this look of fear. And then when we came back in and started shooting, every take we did like 7 takes of that. Every take, when I would say cut, Grant would look at me with tears in his eyes. And it kind of had this feel of like, did you like that? Because I did. And I was like, okay, this guy's happy with his work now. So it was a lot of work for me too. I don't know if you guys felt that, Paul, Grant, but for me, it was just in that moment, I was like, we're all working together. You know, we were all broken, and we all had to become open wounds.
Okay, but how do you, as a director, contain the Paul Raci energy? Because you, as a director, you meet a lot of actors, and every actor, I think, has different energy, different presence. How do you contain the Paul Raci energy? Now I understood completely how you held Grant's hands and how the process kind of like showed beautifully on screen. I feel like magic already transmitted. Now I know why. So how do you contain the Paul Raci energy? Like, what did you do?
Well, I'll ease into that by saying that containing the Grant energy is to not contain the Grant energy, right? Like it's really like, what do you get from Grant, and how do you calibrate to that, right? And it's one of the things that I talked about with a producer, Ben Wiesner, is that Grant gives. I think you even knew you had a name, One Take Rosenmeyer, which I was like, okay, if he's One Take Rosenmeyer, I'm going to give you 5. Like, let's see what else you got. But the difference with working with Paul is like you don't contain Paul's energy, because I think that one of the most beautiful things about working with Paul Raci is he's a very curious soul. He doesn't walk in like a diva and says, this is what you get. He wants to know everything about the scene. What are the relationships? And I think one of the most beautiful things that I don't mean to call it an accident, because it was no accident on Paul's part, but it was something that was beautiful that I did not see coming. Is there's a scene where Ben is in a screaming match with his sister Lucy, and that took 2 days to shoot. You wouldn't know by watching it because it's a very short scene, but it took 2 days to shoot because we had to contend with really bad weather, and we had to shoot it twice. And the second time around, I said, let's be careful. The weather is still really bad. Let's get every possible camera angle. And so when we had the camera trained on Paul was giving so much during that scene, in like moments where he didn't have to say a thing, because the character of Mealworm had to witness a diminishing relationship. And I remember I asked Paul, I said, how are you feeling about this? And you said, well, this is just really sad. This woman really cares about her brother. And what I love about that, it wasn't an intellectual exercise. Like Paul was letting himself feel it. And Paul gave so much heart on any given day that's in those moments, that's what you calibrate to. That's what Paul gives. You let him shape your fucking day.
I'll let him shape the day. Well, okay, so before I go, I want to ask the 3 of you, which scene, when you were making it, and then you reflected on it or you saw it, you felt like, wow, we're making cinema. The scene is so great. It's so grand. What's so good about the scene? I want to ask Paul and Grant and HP.
Oh God, I love this movie. I love it so much. But I did like there's a part in the movie where Grant is being the bird, and the detective comes over, and she asked me if if I'm an attorney or something. I go, not in this state. I like the comedy of that and the whole interaction. That's my favorite part. I could watch that over and over again. It's great.
For me, there was so much. I lived with the script for, I don't know, maybe about a year. It's a little bit less than a year by the time we got to set, and didn't really know, what it was going to look like. I mean, sort of. I had an idea. I was watching HP and Marcus run around the house, shot listing and stuff. But until you truly get there and you get Paul in the space, and our first day was when he was in the cloud room. It was Mealworm's arrival, and he says the whole spiel about, you shouldn't say you have a gun if you don't have a gun, all the way through. If you can't take this leap, you won't make the big one. And I remember we're shooting that, and I'm like in it, and I'm like, well, this feels good, but this is also very scary. And then I had a moment where I stepped away, and I was just watching monitor, and the shot was just Paul going around touching the clouds, and then HP was just directing him, and he said, "Okay, Paul, now turn around and look at Ben." And I wasn't there, and he just turns around, and it's the shot where Mealworm turns around, and the sun, there's that flare, and I lost it. I absolutely lost it. I was like, I remember. Do you remember this, HP? I remember
you lost it. I remember that.
Lost it in that moment, and I was just like, and he came over and he was like, "What was wrong?" And it was this beautiful moment with me and Tina and HP, and I was like, I just didn't realize that we were making this movie. I didn't realize that it was going to be like, it was in that moment where I was like, this may really work. Like, if we're making this movie, if we're doing this and this is scene one, then this is the bar, and we all here have to hit this or surpass this every day, every scene, every shot, and I think we did.
So HP, do you have a different scene?
It's going to be a different answer every time someone asks me. So for you, because the movie lives in my head rent free, and it just plays in random order. So my answer to you right now is, it's actually a personal one, because I remember the prospect of getting Paul, just thinking to myself, like, I'd never worked with Hollywood actors. This isn't going to happen. And I memorized so many moments from Sound of Metal, and I remember there was a very specific thing that always moved me from Sound of Metal, is when his character Joe says, "Those moments of stillness, that place, that's the kingdom of God." And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to cry every time I hear that. And I remember the first time I got to meet Paul, not via Zoom or anything, but really just like be in the same room, and we did a read through. And there was a line that I always thought was a very nice line, which is, "After the fourth attempt, I chose life." To hear Paul deliver that, I remember I lost my breath. I was sitting in the house of Ben Wiesner. We were doing a table read where we were going through the entire script. And I held that with me, and I said, in case he doesn't do that again, direct him to do it like that exactly the same way. But like when we get on set, but he did, and he just kept delivering it better and with more emotion and with more pathos. And it made me realize that sometimes an actor can transcend the words on the page, because I didn't see it as the kingdom of God line, but that's the line that moves me every single time. And I'm so glad that that's kind of one of the clips that's like circulating right now, because it's so powerful. Paul has such powerful the way he delivers lines.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for talking to me. You filled my night now with magic. Thank you. It was an honor. I love this film. I want the whole world to see it, and can't wait to talk with other people about it. Thank you.
Hey,
Please do. Thank you.
Goodbye.
thank you so much.